Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Driving Digital Stand-Up. I'm Isaac Sacolick, and I got a treat for you. We've recorded 10 episodes of interviews tied to my new book, Digital Trailblazer, each one focused on a single chapter. And this one is around the first chapter, What's a Cookie? And I take you on the journey from fixing bugs all the way through a key board meeting. Let's get started with What's a Cookie? Hi, so I want to introduce Ginny Hamilton. She's a former journalist, a CIO community manager, and she was the editor of Digital Trailblazer. Hi, Ginny.
Hey, Isaac. So editing your book was so much fun. And as your editor, one of the first discussions that you and I had was over some of the colorful language that you wanted to use in your book. And for anyone who hasn't read the book yet, I don't think I'm spoiling anything when I say the first word of your book is literally the four-letter F word. And I thought we could start with maybe you talking about why you chose to open your book that way.
Yeah, look, I'm not an F bomber by nature, but I gotta admit that I do think in F bombs every once in a while, and especially my younger self. And that's where the chapter starts from. I'm trying to solve a really hard problem. It's really early in the morning. There's a lot of things going on that are going wrong at the time. And that's the exact word that comes into my mind. I know it comes into the mind of developers, of operations engineers, of data scientists. You're putting all your hard work into something and something isn't going right. And you need to move on to the next thing. And that's the word that comes to mind. So that's where I start the book off from.
Got it. And I think that that's what's so unique about this book is just the candor and the authenticity that you bring to it, and that you don't shy away from sharing the thoughts that you had in that moment. And, in chapter 1, you took us on this up and down journey from fixing bugs to a board meeting and even moderating a panel of CIOs at a construction company. But why start with bug fixing? What was it about that made you want to start there?
Yeah, so I'm a writer, and we love to write about all the great stories that people are doing with technology and with innovations. We're doing artificial intelligence, we're automating everything, we're building all these great experiences. But underneath the hood is really all the hard work that is required to get all this kind of stuff to market. And the hardest things that we do is really solving issues and problems, particularly in areas that we didn't create ourselves. For software developers, it's bugs. For operations engineers, it's the entire stack of technologies being used to deliver an experience. For data scientists, it's data quality issues. We're tasked to go solve a problem because it's a barrier, and now we're bug fixing, and it's hard. And so I wanted to start the book off in an area that all of us have dealt with in our careers. It's the real nature of working with technology. And I fast forward you all the way to the very end, where now you're a transformation leader and you're in your first board meeting. And that's the life of a digital trailblazer in a nutshell, right? One day you're solving bugs, and the next day you're pitching your investors.
And I'm glad you brought up, because I want to jump to board meetings. At some point, digital trailblazers, as you said, may be asked to join one, or may even be presenting regularly as they work their way up in their careers. You've presented at many board meetings. You talk about that in the book. How should leaders prepare for them?
Yeah. So first I would say, Ginny, not everybody starts with board experience on day one, right? You don't know who your board members are the first day you go meet them. So I think the very first thing is, rely on your relationships with your colleagues to get to know what the board is interested in learning about. Why are you being brought to that board meeting? What are some of the things that the board members want to learn from you? What are some of their interests? Where do they feel that there are risks that they want to understand a little bit better? So number one, like anytime you do any kind of talk or presentation, get to know the audience. Now, mostly for board meetings, the most important thing to recognize is it's 90% preparation, right? You can't present everything that you know and understand. It's entirely overwhelming, but you need to be prepared to answer lots of questions. So 90% of the work is knowing the audience and knowing how you're going to respond to different questions that may come up. And then you get to the last 10%. What are you actually presenting? And that needs to be impact oriented. What are you trying to get them to learn and understand? What are you trying to drive at? Keep it very simple in terms of your terminology, avoid jargon, and be very specific about things like problem, what you're investing in, what you're trying to impact in a specific amount of time or a specific investment. And if you can do that really well, you can start presenting at boards fairly regularly.
That's terrific advice. And in your book, I think you do a really good job of illustrating the importance of keeping it simple and avoiding jargon in a way that readers it'll really click for them. Okay, this is why you can't go in with the full explanation, even though you're tempted because you know it inside and out. That's not what you do. And I think you do a great job of sharing that lesson. And that's really one of the things that I love about your book so much is that at the end of every chapter, you end with key takeaways, making it really clear what steps readers can take to enhance their leadership. And in chapter 1 in particular, you advise aspiring leaders to get outside of their comfort zone. So can you elaborate on what it means to step outside your comfort zone, what it really means, and why it's so important for digital trailblazers?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think of my younger self, and I spent most of my time, in front of screens working on code, or in front of servers and getting them configured, or looking at data and analytics. We do so much of our effort just building the result that we're trying to get our teams, our leaders, our customers, our employees to start using. But transformation is really about not them just using it, but gaining the business benefits and the outcomes from using it, right? So take myself, and all of you are in that same position. You got to take what you're building and what you're trying to support and live in the world that your users and your customers are living in. And that's really stepping out of your comfort zone. Even if you're a product manager, right, that's your job, right, is to understand the goals and the values of your customers and not bring new solutions to market. Getting out of your comfort zone is being able to sit with developers and sit with operations engineers and understand what they're trying to solution for, and make sure that your requirements and your aspirations align to what can be delivered and built in a reasonable amount of time. So there's a lot of times where you're in your world of what you do very well, but you have to understand what the outside of your world looks like. And that takes getting out of your comfort zone and learning about what customers need, learning how to collaborate better with your teammates, learning how to run transformation so that you can see the impact. And you're not going to be able to do that by just sitting behind the thing that you're used to doing today. So being able to build up the experiences that aspiring leaders need to become digital trailblazers, it means always putting yourself in situations that you've never done before. Your first board meeting, your first pitch to an investor, your first crisis management, that's all the experiences that digital trailblazers need.
I love how in your book you're not shy about sharing your first two and the many times that you stepped outside of your comfort zone. I think a lot of people will find that really inspiring. So great insights, Isaac. Love the lessons in the book. And with that, I'll toss back to you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Driving Digital Stand-Up and this special fireside chat for my book, Digital Trailblazer and What's a Cookie. Tune in to the next episode that will be talking about spaghetti code and technical debt is now your problem. Have a great day.